Jack Thornton's life was simple, a hard-working single dad raising his daughter Lily in a quiet town far from the chaos of wealth and luxury. But everything changes one fateful day when he stumbles upon a lost woman in the woods. She's not just any stranger. Emily Warren is the heiress to a billion-dollar empire, stranded and disoriented after getting lost on a private hiking trip. Her world is one of privilege, pressure, and expectations, while Jack's is grounded in love, sacrifice, and survival. As Jack helps Emily find her way back to safety, an unlikely bond forms between them. Emily opens up about her struggles to escape the suffocating world of wealth and responsibility, while Jack shares the challenges of raising a daughter alone. What begins as a simple act of kindness turns into a life-altering connection. Emily, grateful yet conflicted, offers Jack a reward, but it's the quiet moments between them that spark something more. Their worlds collide in unexpected ways, leading to a miracle neither could have foreseen. A lost woman, a single dad, and a twist of fate. What happens next changes everything they thought they knew about life, love, and destiny. Jack Thornton lived in a small town on the edge of a vast forest. His life was anything but extraordinary, but that's how he liked it. A dedicated father to his young daughter Lily, Jack found joy in the simplest things. Fixing cars, mowing the lawn, or sitting down with Lily for a dinner of homemade spaghetti. Since his wife's passing 5 years ago, his world had become a routine of work and fatherhood. It wasn't easy, but Jack found fulfillment in knowing he was doing his best for his daughter. Every morning, after dropping Lily off at school, Jack would head to his job as a mechanic at a local garage. The pay was modest, but it was enough to keep the lights on. In the evenings, Jack would help Lily with her homework, taking pride in seeing her grow into a smart, kind, and determined young girl. It was a quiet life, but it was their life. However, there was always a sense that something was missing. Jack had put aside his personal desires for the sake of Lily, and while he loved being a father, there were moments when he wondered what might have been. With no extended family to rely on, Jack's world revolved around Lily. He had little time for himself, and the idea of meeting someone new seemed like an impossible dream. Yet in the back of his mind, Jack often thought that maybe, just maybe, there was a bigger purpose for him, something more than the quiet life he'd created. Every weekend, Jack would take a break from the chaos of life to escape into the woods. Hiking was his one true solace, the only time he could clear his mind and breathe. On one such Saturday morning, as Jack set off on his usual trail through the forest, he had no idea that this day would be different from any other. The sun shone brightly, dappling through the tall trees, and the air was fresh and crisp. Jack was lost in his thoughts, enjoying the solitude, when he heard a faint cry. His heart quickened, and instinctively, he rushed toward the sound. What he found was beyond anything he could have anticipated. Jack followed the sound of the voice, unsure of what to expect. As he made his way deeper into the woods, he stumbled across a woman, lying on the ground. She was disheveled, pale, and covered in dirt, her clothes not the kind of attire one would expect for a hike in the wilderness. She looked out of place, out of her element. Jack's first thought was that she must have fallen or gotten injured somehow. "Are you all right?" he asked, kneeling beside her. The woman looked up at him with wide, confused eyes. Her hair was tangled and she seemed disoriented. She tried to sit up but winced in pain. Jack gently helped her to her feet, offering her some water from his canteen. She gratefully accepted, though her hands shook as she took the bottle from him. I don't know where I am," she murmured, her voice shaky. "I got lost." Jack took in her appearance. She was clearly out of place in the forest. Her designer clothes, though covered in dirt, were expensive and tailored to perfection. Her shoes, high-end and impractical for hiking, were scuffed and scraped. She seemed like someone who didn't belong in the woods at all. "Where did you come from?" Jack asked, his curiosity piqued. I was hiking with a guide," she said, her voice trailing off, "but I lost track of the path. I didn't mean to wander so far." Jack frowned, surveying the forest around them. It wasn't uncommon for people to get lost in the woods, but there was something strange about the woman's demeanor. She didn't seem panicked, but rather exhausted and disoriented. "My name's Jack," he said, offering her a reassuring smile. "I can help you get out of here." The woman blinked and gave a small nod. "I'm Emily Warren." The name struck Jack as odd, but he didn't think much of it at the moment. "You're lucky I came along," Jack said, his voice steady. "It's easy to get lost out here. Let's get you back to town." Emily looked up at him, her expression one of both gratitude and relief. "Thank you," she said softly. Jack helped Emily up and steadied her as they began to walk. He didn't know who she was, but at that moment, none of that mattered. He was just helping someone in need. As they walked through the dense forest, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that this was no ordinary encounter. There was something about Emily that seemed different, but for now all he could focus on was getting her to safety. As they walked, the hours passed in silence, the only sounds being the crunch of leaves underfoot and the occasional bird call. Emily, though clearly exhausted, seemed to gather some strength as they made their way through the woods. Jack kept a steady pace, careful not to push her too hard, but he noticed she wasn't complaining. She was just quiet. They came across a small stream and Jack stopped to refill his water bottle. Emily sat on a nearby rock, her gaze distant, as though she were lost in thought. "You don't seem like you're from around here," Jack said, trying to break the silence. Emily gave a soft laugh, but there was little humor in it. "You're right, I'm not." Jack raised an eyebrow, curious. "Where are you from, then?" "New York City," she replied, her voice a little more relaxed now. "I've been living there my whole life." Jack couldn't help but be intrigued. "New York? That's a far cry from these woods." Emily nodded. "Yeah, it's different. It's where my family is, and where I've always been expected to be." She hesitated, then looked at him with a hint of vulnerability. "But I'm starting to wonder if it's where I really belong." Jack didn't know what to say. He wasn't used to hearing someone from her world talk like this. "I can't imagine what that must be like. It's hard enough trying to make things work with just me and Lily, but to have all that pressure." Emily looked at him, her expression softening. "You'd be surprised. Sometimes I wish I could have a life like yours. Simple, with no one telling me what I should do, what I should want." Jack felt a pang of sympathy. "I don't know if it's all that simple, but it's ours. It's all we've got." Emily studied him for a moment as if trying to understand him. "Maybe that's the problem," she said quietly. "Maybe I don't know who I am without all the noise." Jack didn't know what to say. He was a mechanic, a father, a man of simple means. He'd never had the luxury of pondering his place in the world in the way Emily did, but somehow he understood her in a way he hadn't expected. As they continued on their journey, the gap between their worlds seemed less vast. Two people from different backgrounds, united by a simple act of kindness, and maybe, just maybe, something more. As the afternoon wore on, the sky grew darker and the wind picked up. Jack glanced at Emily, who seemed to be struggling more with each step. Her energy was running low and the terrain was growing more difficult. The once pleasant walk through the woods was now turning treacherous. "We should find shelter," Jack said, scanning the area. He had hiked these woods enough to know that storms could come out of nowhere, and the last thing he wanted was for them to be caught in one. Emily nodded, but she was clearly exhausted. "Where can we go?" "There's a small cabin nearby," Jack said. "It's not far. We'll make it before the storm hits." They pushed on, but the storm arrived sooner than they anticipated. The wind began to howl, and large drops of rain started to fall, quickly turning into a downpour. Jack pulled Emily along, trying to shield her from the worst of it, but the rain soaked them both through within minutes. The cabin was just ahead, and Jack urged Emily to hurry. They finally reached it, and Jack quickly unlocked the door, pulling Emily inside just as the storm unleashed its fury. The small cabin, though basic, provided them with warmth and shelter. Jack closed the door behind them, locking it against the storm outside. Emily collapsed onto a chair by the fireplace, shivering from the cold. Jack quickly made a fire, and the warmth began to seep into the room. Emily pulled her knees to her chest, wrapping her arms around herself as the storm raged outside. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice quiet. "I didn't mean to drag you into all of this." Jack smiled softly. "It's not your fault. We're safe now." Emily looked at him, her eyes searching. "I don't even know how to thank you. You've gone above and beyond for someone like me." Jack just shrugged, feeling uncomfortable with the gratitude. "It's what anyone would do." But Emily wasn't convinced. She'd never met anyone quite like Jack before, someone who was so selflessly kind, without expecting anything in return. And as the storm raged outside, Emily began to realize that maybe, just maybe, this was the start of something more than just a chance encounter in the woods. The storm outside howled through the trees, but inside the cabin, Jack and Emily found a moment of peace. Emily sat near the fire, drying her soaked clothes as Jack added more wood to keep the flames alive. The warmth of the cabin was a welcome reprieve from the cold, and slowly Emily's shivers began to subside. They spent the rest of the evening in relative silence, save for the occasional exchange of words about their situation. Jack never asked too many questions, letting Emily speak when she was ready. He sensed that she wasn't used to talking about her problems, much less to a stranger, but somehow the solitude of the cabin, the storm raging outside, and the long day they had spent together seemed to allow Emily to open up. Eventually, the storm passed and the winds died down. The sky above cleared, revealing a blanket of stars. Jack checked his watch and then glanced at Emily. "We should head out early tomorrow. It's not far to the nearest town. I'll get you back to civilization," Jack said, standing up to prepare for the night. Emily nodded, but there was a hesitation in her eyes. "You don't have to do this, Jack. You've already done more than enough." Jack just smiled. "It's nothing. Let's get some rest. We'll leave at first light." But Emily had more on her mind than just the physical journey ahead. Her family had been frantic about her disappearance. Jack had no idea who Emily really was, but she had let slip her last name earlier, Warren. It didn't mean much to him, but as the night passed and Jack drifted off to sleep, Emily lay awake, thinking about how she would explain everything to her family. The storm, the lost time, the stranger who had shown her more kindness than her own family had in years. The next morning, after a light breakfast, they set off toward the nearest town. Emily looked far better than she had the day before, though she still looked a little out of place in the forest. As they trekked through the trees, the sound of a helicopter's blades cutting through the sky soon reached their ears. Emily's head jerked up, and she sighed. "They must have sent a search party," she murmured. her face a mix of relief and reluctance. Within minutes, the helicopter appeared hovering above them. A team of searchers climbed down with ropes and pulled Emily into the craft. Jack stood off to the side, watching the scene unfold, his heart heavy with the realization that their brief connection was coming to an end. "Thank you, Jack. Truly," Emily said as she climbed into the helicopter. She looked back at him one last time, her eyes full of gratitude and something else, something unspoken. "I'm just glad I could help," Jack replied, giving her a small wave. The helicopter ascended into the sky, leaving Jack standing there, watching as Emily disappeared into the clouds. He didn't know why, but he had a feeling this wasn't the last time he would see her. Days passed, and life returned to normal for Jack. He went back to his routine, work, picking up Lily from school, helping her with homework, and making sure their small home was in good shape. It was a quiet, predictable life, but there was a sense of satisfaction in the simplicity of it. Jack didn't expect anything extraordinary to come from his brief encounter with Emily Warren. After all, she was a stranger, a woman who had simply needed help in the woods. But then, one afternoon, Jack received an unexpected call. The number on his phone was unfamiliar, but something told him to pick it up. "Hello?" "Hi, is this Jack Thornton?" a woman's voice asked. "Speaking." "This is Emily Warren. We met a few days ago in the woods," she said. Jack's heart skipped a beat. He hadn't expected to hear from her. "Oh, right. Are you okay? Everything all right?" he asked, a hint of concern in his voice. Emily laughed softly. "I'm fine, Jack. I just wanted to thank you again for everything. My family was able to get me safely back home, and I'm all right now, but I wanted to reach out and offer you something." Jack felt his brow furrow in confusion. "Something? I didn't do anything special. I was just helping." "I know, but I've been thinking about what you said, about how different our lives are," Emily continued, "and I want to show my gratitude. I'd like to invite you and your daughter Lily to our family's estate for a weekend, a way to say thank you." Jack was taken aback. "Your family's estate? I don't know. That sounds like a lot." "I insist," Emily said. "I want you to come. I understand if it feels strange, but I'd really like to show you my appreciation in a more personal way. You've already done so much for me." Jack hesitated. This was a different world from his own, a world of wealth, opulence, and power. He wasn't sure how he would fit in, but there was something in Emily's voice, a sincerity that made him pause. "Okay," Jack said finally. "I'll bring Lily. We'll come for the weekend." Emily's voice brightened. "Great. I'll arrange everything. You'll be my guests, and I promise it'll be a relaxing time." After the call ended, Jack sat quietly for a moment. What had he just agreed to? But deep down, he knew there was more to this than just a weekend getaway. He wasn't sure what to expect, but part of him was intrigued. Maybe this was the beginning of something that could change their lives. The weekend arrived, and Jack found himself packing up the car for an adventure that felt more like a surreal dream than a reality. He and Lily were about to visit one of the wealthiest families in the country, the Warren family. Jack was nervous, unsure of what to expect from this world that was so far removed from the life they led. As they drove toward the Warren estate, the landscape transformed. The roads became wider, the houses more grand, and the air seemed to hum with an air of privilege. Jack couldn't help but feel out of place as they neared the massive gates of the estate. The gates swung open, and Jack drove up a long, winding driveway flanked by towering trees and manicured gardens. The mansion loomed ahead, a sprawling structure of marble and glass that took Jack's breath away. It was unlike anything he had ever seen, a world of luxury he couldn't even begin to imagine. When they arrived at the front door, Emily greeted them with a warm smile, looking every bit the elegant heiress. She was dressed in a simple yet stylish dress, her hair perfectly done. She led them inside, where a butler took their coats, and they were shown into a grand living room with high ceilings and expensive furnishings. "Welcome to my home," Emily said, her voice filled with pride. "I'm so glad you could make it." Jack tried to hide his discomfort, but he couldn't shake the feeling that he didn't belong here. Emily seemed at ease in this environment, as though she had been born into it. Jack, on the other hand, felt like an intruder. "I hope you don't feel out of place," Emily said, sensing his unease. "I know this is all a bit much, but please make yourselves at home." The estate was beautiful, but Jack couldn't help but feel disconnected from it all. The wealth, the luxury, it was a far cry from the life he had built with Lily. He was a mechanic, a father, a simple man, and here he was, surrounded by extravagance. Emily's family wasn't much better, distant and cold. Her father, Richard Warren, barely acknowledged them, too absorbed in his business to care about the guests in his home. Her mother was no different, greeting them with a stiff handshake before retreating into another room. As the day went on, Jack realized that despite the opulence around him, Emily didn't seem happy in this world. She was polite, but there was a quiet sadness in her eyes, and Jack couldn't help but wonder, what was she really looking for? As the weekend continued, Jack became more and more aware of the stark contrast between Emily's life and his own. The estate, with its luxury cars and vast spaces, felt like a prison to her. He noticed that she rarely smiled when her family was around, and her interactions with them seemed forced. Emily's father, Richard Warren, was all business, and her mother, though polite, didn't seem to care much about her daughter's well-being. One evening, after a particularly awkward dinner, Emily pulled Jack aside. Her expression was weary, and her eyes were filled with frustration. "I can't do this anymore," Emily said, her voice low. "I don't belong here, Jack. I never have. My whole life has been about living up to my father's expectations, following his every move, becoming part of this empire." Jack looked at her, his concern deepening. "What are you saying?" "I don't want this life," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I don't want to be trapped in this world of wealth and power. I want to make my own choices, create my own future." Jack didn't know what to say. He had always known that Emily's life was different from his, but hearing her speak like this made him realize just how much she longed for something more, something real. "I don't know how to get out," Emily continued, her voice barely audible, "but I want to find a way." The conversation lingered in Jack's mind long after Emily had walked away that evening. The weight of her words had struck him harder than he expected. Emily didn't want the life her family had mapped out for her. She wanted something real, something far from the glitzy facade of the Warren Empire. Jack understood that feeling all too well. He had spent his own life fighting against expectations, but those pressures had always been simpler. To provide for Lily, to be a good father, and to make sure his daughter had what she needed. But Emily's world was a labyrinth of power, wealth, and family obligations. And yet she wasn't free, not like Jack was. The next morning, as they sat together for breakfast, Emily's mood had shifted. She was quieter now, deep in thought. Jack could tell she was still grappling with what she had confessed the night before. It wasn't a decision to leave her family's empire lightly. For someone like her, with so much at stake, the choice would not come without consequence. "I think I know what I need to do," Emily said, her voice resolute. Jack looked up at her, sensing the strength in her words. "What is it?" he asked gently. "I've been thinking about it all night," she said. "I can't keep living my life according to their rules. It's time for me to step away from everything, from the business, from the expectations. I need to find my own path. It's time to start over." Jack smiled, though he could see the fear in Emily's eyes. "That's a brave decision, but you don't have to do it alone." Emily's lips curled into a faint smile. "I know. I don't know exactly what the future holds, but I know one thing. I don't want to keep living like this. I want to find my own way." The decision to leave her family behind was not easy. Emily knew it would cause a rift, maybe even a permanent one, but as she looked at Jack sitting across from her with his warm smile, she realized she no longer cared about the empire her father had built. She wanted to build her own future, grounded in love, honesty, and purpose. That afternoon, Emily made a call to her father, her voice steady but firm. "Dad, I need to talk to you about something," she began. "I can't keep doing this anymore. I'm stepping away from the family business. I'm leaving. I need to figure out who I am outside of all of this." There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Her father's voice, when it came, was cold and unyielding. "Emily, you can't be serious. This is foolish. You don't understand what you're throwing away." "I understand perfectly, Dad. And I'm doing this for myself, not for you or anyone else. I'll figure things out. But I can't stay here anymore." The call ended with tension still hanging in the air, but Emily felt a weight lift from her shoulders. She had made the decision. Now it was time to live it. Later that day, as Jack and Emily walked through the estate's grounds, Emily turned to Jack. "Thank you," she said softly, "for believing in me, even when I didn't believe in myself." Jack smiled, putting his arm around her shoulder. "You did it, Emily. You took the first step. Now you can make your own future." And that was exactly what Emily intended to do. She would leave the riches behind, step away from the family business, and carve out her own path. But the real miracle, the real turning point, wasn't just in the choice she made. It was in the way Jack had quietly supported her, without judgment or expectation. Together, they had made a choice to build something meaningful, something that for once wasn't about money or status. The days that followed Emily's decision were a whirlwind. She moved out of the Warren estate, much to her father's fury. But she didn't care anymore. The life she had always known, the life of privilege and expectation, was no longer her reality. Emily moved into a small apartment in the town near Jack, far removed from the luxury of her past life. It was a modest place, but it was hers. And for the first time in years, Emily felt free. Jack and Emily spent more time together as she adjusted to her new life. Jack continued working as a mechanic, and though his life was simple, it was a life he had built with integrity. Emily began to immerse herself in volunteer work, helping disadvantaged children through education and mentorship. It wasn't long before she realized what she had always wanted to do, to give back, to make a real difference in the lives of those who had no voice. With Jack's encouragement and support, Emily launched her own charity, focusing on providing underprivileged children with the tools and opportunities to succeed. Jack, ever the practical one, helped set up vocational training programs for the kids. His mechanical skills proved invaluable, and Emily's vision began to take shape. Together, they built something meaningful, a place where children could learn, grow, and find hope. As the months passed, their relationship deepened. What began as a chance encounter in the woods had blossomed into something neither of them could have predicted. They shared their hopes and dreams, their fears and regrets. Through it all, they found in each other a connection that was genuine, grounded in love and understanding. And then, one warm afternoon, as they sat together on the porch of Emily's new home, Jack looked at her and smiled. "I never expected this," he said softly. Emily looked at him, her eyes filled with gratitude. "Neither did I." They had both come from different worlds, but now their worlds had merged. They were building something together, a life that was more than just a miracle. It was a testament to what could happen when kindness, courage, and love intertwined. Jack had helped Emily find her way out of the woods that day, but it was Emily who had helped him find something even more precious, the strength to open his heart again, to embrace a love he never expected. And so, in the end, the miracle was not just in the way they found each other, it was in the life they created, hand in hand, a life filled with love, purpose, and the promise of a future built together. The woods had brought them together, but it was love that would carry them forward.